In the early 2000s, I was looking for a sound card that I could use for recording to my computer. I was running Windows XP and using an older version of Sonic Foundry Acid, but I wasn't happy with the sound card that was built into my motherboard, so I went out looking for a new toy. I'm pretty sure I came across the Hercules Game Theater XP 7.1 at my local Best Buy. It had all the things I was looking for: quarter-inch and RCA inputs, MIDI, game controller, SPDIF, USB, 7.1 sound, and to top it all off, it came with a really cool external rack with all of the inputs and outputs. I used it for many years until Windows XP was no longer viable. When I upgraded to Windows 7, I was no longer able to figure out a way to make the card work, so I got rid of it. I probably recycled it or gave it away, to be honest. What I didn't know at the time was that Hercules only ever had 32-bit drivers available for it, which is probably why I couldn't make it work. Fast forward about 20 years, I had worked in and around IT for about 5 years and had learned a lot more about hardware and drivers, and I wondered if I could find another game theater if I could get it to work on a modern system. I found one on eBay for about $40 that looked complete, so I bought it and toyed around with it for a while. I could not find any 64-bit drivers for Windows. However, I think I was able to find some drivers for 64-bit Debian. I'll put a link to the ALSA, a Linux project for using old Cirrus Logic Sound Fusion drivers, in the description. The problem I ran into with Linux was that I could only get the output to work with those drivers, so that wasn't a solution for me. What I found is that I could get the game theater to work pretty well with 32-bit versions of XP, Vista, and Windows 7, but I wanted to get it to work with a more modern operating system. I was able to get it to work with 32-bit Windows 8.1, but Windows 10 and 11 would not work at all. Initially with Windows 8.1 Pro, I could get it to work, but the game theater audio interface would not load. I really wanted to use the interface, so I scrapped the idea after putzing with it for a while. A few months later, I had an opportunity to pick up an 11th gen i9 processor pretty cheap from a friend of mine, so I revisited the project, and I also found a gigabyte motherboard with a 32-bit PCI slot. It's not easy finding motherboards with a 32-bit PCI slot anymore, so it was a bit of a journey to make that happen. When installing a 32-bit OS, the motherboard would not recognize the onboard graphics, so I installed an old NVIDIA GeForce 8800 GT. I figured I would give Windows 7 a shot since it had worked pretty well before. However, it was not compatible with the new hardware and would fail on install. I could not get any of the other older versions of Windows to install. However, I was able to get Windows 8.1 Pro 32-bit to run. So at the end of the day, I have an 11th gen i9 with 32 gigabytes of RAM, only using 3 gigs of it because of the 32-bit operating system. You'll see that Windows can't wrap its head around the RAM configuration, and it isn't displaying properly the usage. But the system seems to work fine regardless. Obviously 3 gigs of RAM is a pretty significant bottleneck to this system, but I don't intend to use it for any heavy lifting. I've tested all of the USB, quarter-inch, and RCA inputs, and everything works perfectly. However, I haven't tested anything else. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and if you've got one of these old sound cards lying around, maybe you'll find a way to breathe new life into it.